Hello and welcome to Film Industry Pro. My name is Pete Bailey and I'm your host. Everything that is mentioned in today's episode I will link up over in the show notes page over at filmindustrypro.com/episode 26. Welcome to Film Industry Pro. Each week I'll be chatting to a top film and TV industry professional, ranging from pre-production right the way through to post-production, sharing their knowledge, tips and advice on not only the best ways to get into the industry, but how to stay on top of your game and thrive as a film industry pro. Huge thanks to the guys at noise4.com for editing the podcast. If you're interested in getting any kind of audio done for your production, these guys provide everything audio-wise, right the way from pre-production all the way through to post-production. So if you're interested in their services, then go check them out at noise4.com, and that's the word 4. Hello and welcome to Film Industry Pro. My name is Pete Bailey and I'm your host. Today's guest is Rob Disner, and he is from the US and he's got some amazing stories. The reason we ended up getting in touch was over Facebook. I'd put a post out to see if there was any people who'd like to come onto the podcast, and this guy was perfect for it. He ended up sending me his ebook, which is just a short book about how he got into the industry. And basically he started at the top doing the Dangerous album with Michael Jackson. But he got to know Michael Jackson on a personal level. Just his time at the studio there was incredible. He'd have Billy Idol walking down the corridor with a girl under each arm, wearing absolutely nothing but a sock. So yeah, just use your imagination there. And as Rob was a runner there, he'd be asked to do sort of the odds and sods and running errands and things like that. But in this instance, apparently Billy Idol asked him to order a pizza and send it to the room down the corridor. Anyway, this is basically this guy's life. He's had an incredible journey, and I hope we can sort of put that across within this episode. Very interesting guy, and you should definitely download his book, and he tells you where to do that in this episode. So we'll jump right in and enjoy. So tell us what you do exactly, and then tell us how you started off.
I'm Rob Disner. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm a production sound mixer on films and TV shows, and I also work as a boom operator.
Great stuff. So, can you just reel off a couple of the jobs that you've done that people might recognize?
Sure. I was a boom operator on Baywatch, which was a great success, but I enjoyed it. It was a fun show. Also did boom on a recent movie for Oprah Winfrey that she did for HBO called The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. As far as mixing projects, I mix a lot of lower budget stuff. I also work for Turner Classic Movies. We do a lot of the intros and outros for the classic movies on their cable channel. When they walk up and they say, hey, you're about to see Citizen Kane, they tell you a little bit of info about it.
Just going back to Baywatch, did you do any miking up at all?
We had a utility, and we came in halfway through the show. The first sound team left for another job or something or other, so we had the same sound utility. I should probably explain, I think it's different in England. The typical sound crew on a sound team for a film is the sound mixer who runs the equipment, the boom operator who holds the microphone, and the third person is called the sound utility. All right, so sound utility is the person on our crew who does a lot of the wiring, and it's become that way only because you end up wiring people in the trailers a lot, and the trailers can be, a quarter of a mile away. If I'm off the set, then I'm not there watching rehearsals and things like that. So as the boom operator on a show, you pretty much have to just be glued, next to the camera.
Right,
and
okay.
on a show like Baywatch, where it's 3 cameras and one of them might be, buried in a hole in the sand, and the other one might be in a condor, 40 feet up in the air. And they really don't do a lot of rehearsals. When you get a guy like The Rock or whatever, he's prepared. He wakes up in the morning. He works out for 2 hours before he even gets there. He knows his lines. He knows, the other actors' lines. They already know what they're going to do. So you don't get a lot of rehearsals. So as far as when you're a boom operator, you've just got to be there.
Good stuff. Can you just give us a quick summary of how you got into the industry? Because I think it's pretty amazing.
So I came out to Los Angeles after college. I majored in music production and engineering from the Berklee College of Music in Boston. I came out to LA, seeking my fame and fortune. And as it happened, I ended up working for Ocean Way Studios. Ocean Way Studios had just started the Michael Jackson Dangerous album, which took all of 2 years to do. So it was a long-term project. And they put me on there as the studio runner. So my job was to pick up lunch. And occasionally I'd get to maybe set up mics in the studio. We used to have to do things like, align the DBX deck and things that don't even exist anymore. But mainly I was there just to get lunch and, answer the phone and to pick up whatever types of things that, he might need during the day. And one day he came up to me and he said, Robbie, he used to call me Robbie. He said, Robbie, I need drawers. And I said, all right. And I knew what he meant right away. But I said, all right, what do you need, Michael? And he said, I need drawers. And I said, well, I'm not your mom, so, you're going to have to tell me a little bit more information. And I think he liked me because I actually kind of talked straight to him. A lot of people probably, deferred to him or whatever. And he kind of liked that I kind of was like a straight shooter with him. I said, just tell me what you need. I'll go get it or whatever. And he said, I need Hanes 32. So he was looking for new underwear, and so no, actually he said Hanes 30. He said, I need Hanes 30. I said, all right. And he used to just give me his credit card. It just said Michael Jackson, and I'd just go to the store back when people weren't so suspicious, And as I was running out the door, he said, no. He said, Hanes 32. I don't want him to be too tight. I said, all right, very good. We wouldn't want him to be constricted. So that was one of the more ridiculous things I had to get for him for sure. We used to go to the record store. He would actually drive me to Tower Records, and we'd pick up $1,500 in CDs, and he'd walk up and down the aisles, and he'd say, Robbie, is this one good? I'd say, yeah, this is great, Michael. It'd be like, Led Zeppelin's, fourth album or whatever. Yeah, that's fantastic. Oh, Stairway to Heaven. Yeah, okay. Let's get 6 copies of that. And then he just give them away. I mean, I don't think he even listened to any of that stuff. He just liked being a normal guy and shopping, which is something he very rarely got to do ever.
Amazing. And what was the story about the remote control motorbikes that you got?
We went out and picked up these things that I have never seen, before or since. And they literally were like a remote control car, but they were remote control motorcycles. I mean, they were pretty substantial. I remember they were $900 each. And Michael and I went outside to race these little remote control motorcycles around the parking lot. And we were racing around or whatever. And his went out the studio gate, and there was an alley behind. This was Record One Studios in Sherman Oaks. And his went behind the studio gate. And as soon as it went through the gate, a truck came by and just ran over the motorcycle. He had it about 15 minutes, $900. That was like what I made the entire month working at the studio. And so first I thought it was my, motorcycle, and I was really worried about it. But mine came zooming back, and that was his, like, crushed in the alley or whatever. And he always thought stuff was so funny like that. I mean, he had a good sense of humor.
Amazing. You've had some experiences. So the book, is that downloadable from somewhere?
It is on Amazon. It was fun. I just thought it'd be nice to write all those memories down.
It's a really good little book. I really enjoyed it, actually.
Well, thank you.
No, I did. I was telling people about all the little anecdotes in there as well. I reckon people definitely need to download the book. It's only about 20 pages long, is it?
Yeah.
Something like that. So
it's 99 cents, bargain priced. It's called My Brush with Badness.
So for those of you listening, get onto Amazon and get downloading My Brush with Badness. Great little story. So, mate, what would you say has been the coolest or the weirdest job that you've done so far?
I mean, the weirdest job I ever had, I was a production assistant on the movie Ghoulies Part 4. I know you all loved Ghoulies 1 through 3, so you guys should rush out and see Ghoulies Part 4. It was, 1994, maybe something like that. And my job as a production assistant was to take the lead actress home every night because she had a stalker.
Oh, really?
And so my job was to go to her house and walk around it with a flashlight to make sure the stalker wasn't hiding there. Like, what would I do if he was? Oh, yeah. Hey, I was mixing. Was I mixing? I'm going to say I was mixing something. And it was so long ago, I don't remember what it was. But anyway, I was mixing something in the valley in Los Angeles. And we were shooting at a real seedy, rundown motel, some scene for some movie that I've long forgotten that never came out anyway, and doesn't matter. But so we were hanging out in this, empty, motel room that the groups were using to, store their C-stands or whatever, just an extra room we had rented for the day. So we're sitting on the bed with the grips, and, it's some long 3-hour lighting setup. So the grips start flipping around the channels. So, of course, they find the porn channel. On the TV at the seedy motel. And, I'm just like half watching whatever. They're looking at this stuff and drinking coffee and, smoking cigarettes or whatever. And we look and we notice that the actual porn movie was shot in that room that we were sitting in. They didn't want to pay to license the real one or whatever. So, like, in the movie, like, you see the same picture on the wall, and there's the lamp, and we're looking at that lamp, and it's in the movie, and it's in the room, and, so they had made their own in-house porn movie. So I was very impressed by that.
That is impressive, actually. Talk about saving money. Oh, man, you've got some stories. What's been the most embarrassing moment that you've had?
That happened recently, actually. I was actually mixing a documentary. It was fascinating. I just got called in for a day and set up my recorder and just doing interviews of these prisoners who have been wrongly accused for crimes and had spent, considerable time in jail. And we were interviewing this lawyer. So we were in this quiet room recording this guy who had just been released from jail. He had been in there since 1985. They finally looked at the evidence again and figured out that, he really didn't commit this murder or whatever. And he had been gone for 30 years in jail. And he was telling this story about how, the only thing he has is the control over his actions. And, everyone wants him to be angry, but he doesn't want to give them this anger because then, they'd be getting another thing from him. Whatever. He was going into this whole story and my phone went off. So I just felt awful. I mean, it's
completely
never before or since. And I don't even keep the phone anywhere near me now. Just shut it all the way down. As a sound mixer, the last thing you want to do is have your phone go off.
Yeah, you don't want that to be you.
As a boom operator, sometimes people get a little annoyed with you or whatever. You get the boom in the frame or you're standing in the wrong place. I mean,
I was on a commercial last week and I accidentally hit the watch of the lighting technician and he was not happy. He stood right behind me. I was in this tiny little cramped little spot. I had like 3 extras stood around me and it was like literally the only place I could get in.
Right.
And a makeup artist had come along. She'd left a bag under where I was holding the boom. She lifted the boom up with her own hand and the other end of the boom pole went down, hit this guy's watch. Luckily, it didn't do anything, to be honest, but pretty embarrassing because everyone's watching.
yeah, that was why, even though Baywatch was such a, tough job physically to be out on the beach and they did long takes and they would just keep resetting without stopping the camera or whatever. There was just no way I was going to have any issues because, you're holding the boom over the rock. It's like, you're not going to drop the boom on the rock's head. That's just not a thing that's going to happen. So, I had another issue maybe a year ago or something or other where I was also booming. I was just in a bad position that I didn't like, but I was standing to the right of the B camera and then on the left was the other camera. And I knew he was panning all the way around. I thought it might be a little dangerous. So anyway, they cut and the DP started yelling and saying, I'm seeing the goddamn boom, guy standing right there, whatever. But I was standing behind the camera. So if he was seeing me, he was totally seeing the B camera too. I said, well, aren't you seeing the camera? Yeah, I'm seeing that too.
Oh, typical.
but it's my fault because I'm sound,
Yeah, exactly. Oh, what a pain. How do you find you get on with ADs on production? Do you find you get a lot of pressure from them?
I really tend to try to make those relationships early on. And I know I'm going to need some favors later on, when I mess something up. So if you build that stuff in early on, you tend to get a little bit more consideration with that sort of thing. I mean, sometimes you just run into someone who just doesn't want you to be there at all. I mean, they'd rather just, you wire everybody and go away. And, you just got to deal with that too.
What would you say the most common problem is that you have on location?
As far as when I'm booming, there's just so much that they see that you don't see. And that you don't see in a monitor. And it's usually things like reflections, silly stuff, the reflection of you in the door handle of the car, just things that you just don't see. They don't tell you about during the rehearsal. They shoot it and then they're screaming because they see you in this thing. It's got to be a group effort, but everybody's got a lot of stuff on their plate. Sometimes they just, don't notice that stuff till you're ready to roll.
I always find it's a much easier day when the AD has got some kind of experience in sound, or at least they understand it. Makes things a million times more easy.
Yeah, it definitely helps. I mean, you'll tell an AD you need room tone after this scene or whatever, and the good ones, 15 minutes later will remember that you said that, and they'll say, wait, we got to get room tone before we go or whatever, and you won't even have to mention it again. Or they'll look around and they'll notice that you're still adjusting the boom pole, and they won't yell out, let's roll or whatever until they see that everybody is set. Not just camera, but whoever's on the set that needs to do something.
Yeah, the AD I was working with last week actually was rather than me asking for room tone, it'd be a case of him just already knowing the order of things. And once we'd done a scene, he'd be like, right, we're going to get some room tone or we're going to do a sound path now. And just that was it. He was just calling shots without us even having to ask for it. I thought it was amazing, actually.
Right, sure. Yep, that's always helpful.
So, kit, what sort of kit are you using when you're mixing?
I pretty much just got a dedicated bag rig. I have not made the jump to being a cart guy. So most of the stuff I do is just, what they call one-man band, just being on my own. Although I did just do a low-budget feature for a month where I was the cart guy. And so it just meant I put my bag on the cart. And I worked with the boom operator. But I'm using the 633, the Sound Devices recorder, Electrosonics wireless.
Nice.
Still kind of experimenting with some of the IFB systems. And I'm always just trying to find ways not to spend a ton of money doing this, but, deliver basically the same quality that anyone would expect. Still building it up.
If for your IFB system? Are you using G3s or something different?
I'm actually using a Comtech transmitter and
Comtech,
these receivers that are called listen receivers. And so, again, still experimenting with it. If I feel like I'm going to need to be somewhere where, the IFBs are really going to be vital, then I'll just rent, a set of Comtechs usually. As a mixer, I don't have a real big need for them. Most of the stuff I do is like I just did a tennis tournament and, we interviewed the tennis players or whatever. And there's not an expectation on those kind of shows that you'll even have IFBs. I have them around, but I usually just keep them in the box unless someone says, hey, can I hear something,
Fair enough. So what are the earning potentials for someone in your role then?
It's a nice market. We are always fighting like everyone else to keep the rates up. Rates have become kind of a contentious, kind of controversial, situation at times, fueled by social media, which is really interesting because when I started, there was no Facebook, there was no social media. Your rates were whatever someone would pay you, and you would pay you. But now your rates are whatever the group of mixers that you're friends with on the Facebook page think, should be a good rate for a sound mixer with a certain type of equipment, and you kind of try to keep it in that range. You don't want to, of course, undercut people, and knowingly at least sometimes. I mean, you don't know. And
yeah, it's quite a touchy subject, isn't it? On Facebook especially. I rarely post anything. I just kind of read because you don't know who's going to jump on you, if anyone. You see, you're either going to get positive comments or a shed load of negative comments, especially when talking about rates.
No, it's true. Well, one thing, I think is a great piece of advice is to never mention money. You really want to stay on the good side of people as much as you can, and sometimes it's not possible. But the best thing to do is never mention money. Just say, hey, I heard about this job, call them up, And, the reality is somebody's always going to take the job. There's just no way around it. These jobs don't go unfilled. So the job that you would never touch because you won't get out of bed for less than $900 a day, somebody's going to take it for $500 or whatever. It's just the way it is.
True. Yeah, it's a good way to look at it. Yeah, there's always someone to fill that job.
But, specifically in Atlanta, most mixers are looking for around $50 an hour, looking for a labor rate between $500 and $600 a day for a 10-hour day. And then the equipment, of course, varies by what they're asking for. But for a basic kit, people are looking for somewhere around $300 for, a couple wires, a recorder, maybe an IFB setup, that kind of basic kit. But a good base rate in Atlanta is somewhere around $800 now.
So what would you say the best moment in your career has been?
I just have to say the best moment in my career has been moving to Atlanta. I was a production sound mixer. I mixed maybe 40 low-budget features in the 90s on a Nagra and, with just a couple mics and maybe a couple radio mics, And it just got to be a real grind. I worked on all these low-budget films. They never got released. The guy usually ran out of money before the end of the show. And, you'd have to fight to get paid and all that kind of stuff. It just didn't enjoy it at all. So I actually got out of the business for quite a long time. I went into IT. I became a fifth grade teacher for 6 years.
Really? Wow.
But, yeah. So I missed like the whole middle of my career. But ever since I moved to Atlanta, I kept hearing about all the great stuff going on in Atlanta. I wanted to get back into the business. And, just moving to Atlanta has just been great. It's just a real nice community of people. Most people are friendly. They're willing to help you out. They're willing to sit with you and have lunch and talk to you or to share advice, all that kind of stuff.
I noticed in your IMDb, actually, you worked on Fargo. Was that the one with Billy Bob Thornton?
I worked on the voiceovers from the directors for a company. And we used to do all the big movies. Like I recorded Rob Reiner's director's commentary for When Harry Met Sally. So I didn't actually work on the movie Fargo. I worked on some part of the additional content for the DVD. And when it pops up on IMDb, it looks like I did something. So
fair play.
Yeah, I have no idea what I did on Fargo or if I even worked on it, but it is there. That's one I don't remember at all. But I used to work for this company, and when DVDs came out, this was a big thing where they would have all this additional content. They'd just be wanting to fill up the disc with something. And it was kind of fun. I think they're still around. They're called Automat Pictures. And we did the movie Final Destination, and we spent a day interviewing a psychic. And it had no real relation to the movie other than it just kind of was something that they thought would fit in, with the DVD release. And so we did a little documentary on this woman she's one of these women who calls the police and says the kid's buried, and, they drive over there and they find the kid buried there.
Oh, really? So she works with the police?
She's like a visionary. I mean, she can call police in some other state and say, the kid was kidnapped and he's locked up in a closet and this is the address of the house or whatever. And they go knock on the door and there's a kid. So
that's amazing. So, mate, we'll move on to the quick fire round. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice. I remember a guy said once, he said, "You know what, Rob, it's all one long show." And it's really good to give it perspective. You tend to get super fixated on something going on the show you're working on, maybe some piece of equipment you have that isn't working and you're trying to find a workaround and you're panicking, people are looking at you, whatever, all that kind of stuff. And this guy just said, it's all one long show. In the whole arc of your career, this is probably not the biggest deal to be freaking out about. So
I like that. It's a good way to look at it. I like that a lot. What's the one thing that's got you really excited about the industry right now?
Again, I would have to say, and I sound like I'm beating the drum and telling everyone to move out here, but I'm really excited to be in Atlanta right now. There's just a ton of stuff going on. I was just down at Pinewood, booming on a project that I can't talk about, but suffice to say there are a lot of people flying around wearing costumes and stuff like that. And, it's just great to stand there and look at Pinewood Studios in Atlanta. And, you could be in LA or you could be in England or anywhere, So we've got a really good thing going here now. So it's nice to see.
Cool. Can you give us one internet resource and one gadget that you couldn't live without?
I think it has to be, for us here in Atlanta, it has to be Facebook. It's been great to run a group for sound people in Atlanta and, just to be able to stay in contact with people and just to see random jobs pop up. If, I'm sitting around doing nothing at 9 o'clock in the morning, I can see a job pop up and I could be working by noon. So Facebook has really been great just to connect with other people and socialize. And it's just good to, get a pulse on the industry, to know how people feel about things, to know where people think the rate should be and that kind of stuff. So probably Facebook. Another app is, do you know Matt Price?
I do know Matt Price, yeah.
Yeah, and he's got that app called Sound Rolling, which has been really nice. And it's just, any kind of resource you could ever want, is there right on your phone.
It is really useful. He was on as a guest, actually, on one of the previous episodes. So,
oh, good.
Yeah, for anyone listening, Matt Price is a location soundy, and he has a YouTube channel. And like I said, it just gives up loads of information, little tidbits, sort of like 5-minute long videos, just showing you tips and tricks, basically, within the trade. So if you haven't already checked him out, then get over to, is it soundrolling.com? And he's got... and his YouTube channel, Sound Rolling, as well, isn't it? Matt Price.
Yeah, soundrolling.com. Yeah, the videos are great. That's another thing, because I have the perspective of doing this way before social media, way before the internet, way before YouTube. As a matter of fact, when I was in IT, I installed the first server. It was just like a little half-rack server or whatever for this company, YouTube. And in Los Angeles, when I was installing routers and servers and things like that, when I went into some IT work, and I said, this is never going to take off. Who's going to watch videos? I thought, this is ridiculous. They'll be out of business in a month. Videos on the internet. You could barely see anything. And if you could, it was like the size of a postage stamp, and the resolution was terrible. It's like, who's going to, do this? But but Matt Price's videos are actually great. And it's smart. It's nothing I ever think to do when I'm on the set. But when he's on the set, he thinks, hey, I've got this camera here. We've got 5 minutes of downtime. I'm just going to film and show how to, plug stuff in and how to go through the menus and what button to push or whatever. Yeah, they're very useful just to kind of ahead of time look at that stuff. Then you just walk up like you know what you're doing and take care of it. So
Exactly.
It's great.
Yes, well done, Matt Price, for that.
That's it.
So what's one gadget that you couldn't live without?
One gadget that I couldn't live without. I'd have to say my iPhone, whether it's being able to access an app like Matt has to find information, or to be able to adjust the, electrosonics transmitters, with the Electro RM app, or, making a sound report. I use the new Wingman system on the 633, which is nice, the little Bluetooth app where you can roll the recorder from your phone and set up sound reports and all that kind of stuff. And, that's just, it's an indispensable gadget, I think, is just your phone. Although I saw who was it? Christopher Nolan won't let anybody have their phone on set anymore when he's directing a movie. And I thought, well, how do they do all this stuff that we do every day?
Oh, that would kill me. I couldn't handle that.
Yeah, I wouldn't care about not having access to the phone, but it's actually used as a tool. So,
absolutely.
Although it can work against you too. I mean, I've mixed a couple things recently where they'll tell you twice to roll because you're sitting there looking at your phone, but I'm actually hitting record on the phone, not on the recorder. So they think you're fooling around on your phone, and I have to show them that, hey, this is actually my recorder right here. I'm hitting record right now. I'm doing what you told me to do.
That would be a great excuse on a Nolan film. Sorry, mate, I need my phone. So, what kit would you buy if money was no object?
A few people are buying the Kantar recorders, which are, just ridiculously expensive out here. Maybe they're bigger over there than they are over here. Over here, it's just a couple people that have been using those.
Yeah, I think it's the same over here, to be honest. They're sort of an acquired taste, I think.
Even just, upgrading to a bigger Sound Devices recorder, I haven't had much of a need for it. Most of the stuff I mix, maybe it's 2 wires and a boom, so I'm perfectly fine with the 6-track recorder. But if money was no object, I'd certainly love to look into one of those.
Fair play. If you could recommend one book, what would it be?
I'm just trying to think if I've ever read any book on production sound. There was a book which you can probably get on eBay, and it's by this guy named John Ergel, and it's called The Handbook of Audio Recording. I mean, it's out of date. It's years old. But if you're just starting out in the industry, it is just a great basic primer on just how does sound work, how does sound waves propagate, how does a microphone work, where does the sound go, where does the signal go, what are the different gain stages you have to be aware of, all that kind of stuff.
Fair play. Do you know what I haven't done for a while? Plugged my own book, actually. So it's probably been about 10 episodes since I've done this.
Go for it.
The book is called Becoming a Freelancer, and you can download it completely free from becomingafreelancer.com. And it's basically everything you need to know when you're first stepping out into the world of freelancing. So I'm just looking at the contents right now, actually. And it's basically, there's chapters all about how to register your business and what type of business you're going to be, whether you're a sole trader or a limited company, how to set up your business insurance and what type of insurance you need. And then we get into the bits that really matter, like invoicing and rates and, how much do you charge? Because obviously, what's more important than getting paid? And then the book goes into the more interesting sort of aspect, which is, sort of how do you find work, networking, job websites, crewing agencies, kit hire, and then how to actually gain real experience before you can consider yourself a pro, and then buying equipment, new or used. And so, yeah, it's just I think a really useful book. And it's a book I know that I wish I had when I was first starting. It's had great reviews, and so yeah, you can either get that from Amazon. It's called Becoming a Freelancer, or go straight to becomingafreelancer.com and you can download it for free.
I've got to check it out. That sounds great.
So, what one film would you say people need to watch?
I always tend to go back to, as far as if you're interested in being a freelancer and working on films like, Living in Oblivion, which is just, like the worst possible day you could ever have on a low budget film. It's almost like too real to watch that film because you've had these like same experiences on the set. There's another one called And God Spoke, which is about 2 producers trying to make a low budget film of the Bible, which was in itself a very low budget film and probably not known very well. But again, just a lot of funny situations you would see on the set and things like that. So as far as related to film and, low budget filmmaking, those would be 2 films that would be very enjoyable to watch and you could probably get something out of too.
Great stuff. If you had to start all over again and all you had was $5,000, what would you do to get back into the industry and what kit would you buy?
This is an interesting question because I had to start all over again, and really with a small amount of money. And it was a little bigger than $5,000, but not much. Now I think you have, more options as far as lower budget recorders with the Mix Pre series that just came out from Sound Devices, and the Zoom, the F8 and the F4. A lot of people kind of knock it or whatever, but they're multi-track recorders. They run on batteries. They can sit in the bag. And, just a couple of simple mics. I mean, it's tough. $5,000 goes very fast. So it would probably start with one of those lower priced recorders, probably one of the Sound Devices ones, which I'm hearing good things about, and go from there.
Great stuff. And can you give us a parting piece of guidance on the best way we can connect with you?
Oh, the best way you can connect with me for sure would be on Facebook. And like I said, if you are in the Atlanta area and maybe just new to town or whatever, or not aware of it, I do run a Facebook group called Atlanta Utility and Boom. And the parting piece of advice, again, I'm going to have to go back to the one where I said just never mention money on social media. That's my parting piece of advice. It's just, hey, if you hear about something, if there's something going on or whatever, just don't put that figure in your post.
Amazing. Then that's us done, Rob.
Well, I've really enjoyed this. This was great. I'm glad we found time to do this.
Nice one. Yeah, cheers, Rob.